Hey fellas, alrighty. Week 2 is in the books. We had a exciting, actually 2 matchups came down to the final couple of games Monday night. That was pretty awesome to watch. It was fun watching every time someone got a catch or yards or touchdown, and watching the percentages move up and down. We're actually going to, so we'll start with the recap. Get Big Papa Swag and Nashi. Big Papa Swag won 149.16 to 98.38. So Big Papa Swag, Justin Herbert pulled his weight. Did get a little injured there. Unsure about his status moving forward. It's a rim injury, which means it's probably going to linger for a few weeks, if not the rest of the season. So that should be fun for him. Austin Eckler, 18 points. Yeah, it's a little concerning with his usage and the fact that he spends almost an entire drive off the field. Last year and I think the year prior, he definitely did not do that. So they're definitely trying to save him for the season-long effort, just to keep him fresh. So that does put a damper, I believe, on his long-term actual fantasy status, but he's still a very solid option. Excellent receiving back. Half of his points were just his catches alone. So, yeah, he's definitely going to have a down season compared to last year. Javonte Williams, the Broncos just had a terrible game overall. Really struggled in a field goal fest against Houston. Javonte Williams, though, did get 15 carries for 75 yards. He only had 1 catch out of 4 for 10 yards. It's not normal. He usually does catch the ball a lot more. We'll see what Melvin Gordon did opposite Javonte Williams. I think in a matchup or two, we'll see what happens with him. I'll bring him up again. But 9.5 points, definitely on the low end of his possible outcomes. But in Denver, they're still trying to figure out how to mesh Russell Wilson with this offense. I feel like kind of was a set it and forget it, but it's kind of more of a clunky process thus far. They definitely dropped one they should have won against Seattle. They were just not themselves, it looks like. And then they couldn't even battle against Houston. 2 easy opening games should have been on paper. They should have really had these as kind of tune-up games, like Alabama playing UTEP or something before they start their SEC schedule. It's just one of those things that they just really, really showing as though the Broncos might be the 4-13 team this year from that division. I don't know. They definitely probably going to have more than 4 wins, but this is very concerning, being 1-1 and 2 tight matchups versus Seattle and Houston, 2 of the supposed bottom dwellers. All right, moving on. Jamar Chase had a quiet day, only 10.8 points. I know T. Higgins actually led in receptions, yards, and touchdowns for the Bengals. When you have a talent like T. Higgins, you also have Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase. You're going to have ebbs and flows of who's the top dog. Decent number, definitely not up to par with what he normally puts up, but still not terrible. Tyreek Hill kind of saved the day here, the only real producer on this team this week. Balled out, caught 11 passes, 190 yards, 2 touchdowns, got a bunch of extra points. I know Dema Greg's not going to be too happy about that, but sorry. He got a couple extra points for the 40-plus yard receptions, 40-plus yard touchdowns, and a touchdown of 50-plus. I wonder if whatever. So Tyreek Hill was actually the top wide receiver in terms of yardage for the week as well. But 51 points, that's insane. Huge number. Kyle Pitts, another dud. Just, he's starting slow. Drake London had a pretty productive game, second game in a row. He actually improved from week 1 to week 2. Hopefully for Kyle Pitts, that'll mean once Drake London starts getting a little bit of extra pressure, Kyle Pitts could start be more effective, but who never knows. He may end up just kind of being an outside the top 10 wide receiver this year. It's kind of sad, but seeing that most tight ends, their rookie season, have a very, very big down year, and he had 1,000 yards, which is not normal. It's quite possible he's going to have a down year this year. Kind of flip-flop from the freshman to sophomore season. Who knows? I'm sure he'll turn it around. It's just kind of like Mike Williams. Just kind of, you have big games, then you have absolute dead games. Terry McLaurin had 4 catches for 75 yards, 12.2 points. I look at this and I don't – honestly, he didn't even get involved until late in the game. I don't even know. I think he had 1 catch in the first half. I could be mistaken on that. But he just didn't. I mean, I think he caught a couple of passes and just pretty much been a non-factor. It's very unfortunate. I know Carson Wentz, I believe, was one of the top 5 in terms of yardage this week, passing, and they still lost. They have their best receiver, and they're not throwing the ball. I mean, he's got 8 targets, so they are throwing him the ball. They're just Carson Wentz targets, so they're just all over the place. They could be throwing him in the dirt, throw way over his head, don't count as a target, but not really catchable. Terry McLaurin is going to be able to make a lot out of a little, and to see that he only caught 50% of his targets is a little concerning. It makes me look at the quarterback versus himself. He could be also having a down year. You never know. But with the addition of Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel finally blossoming, he's kind of been the biggest producer there. Dotson has caught 3 touchdowns this season, I think, 3 touchdowns so far. So Jahan Dotson's fantasy value is definitely up there. Curtis Samuel's the one getting the bulk of the actual work, it seems. But we will see what Washington decides to do. Definitely lost to a Detroit team that is looking a lot scarier. My initial thoughts, I believe, even the preseason, when did I say that? Was that week 1? And I said Detroit is someone that could take second place, could challenge for second place, and Green Bay end up being third. Bears are going to be last. And that NFC North, the Vikings, did not do very good this week. They definitely have the talent, but the Vikings I think the Vikings are still the number 1 team in the NFC North. It could just be a bad week against a really good, fantastic Eagles team, but you never know. Najee Harris I saw a stat. Najee Harris is definitely starting out slow, kind of picking up where he left off with the efficiency last year. He needs a lot of those catches to buoy his fantasy status. But I saw a stat that Joe Burrow has more sack yards than Najee Harris has rushing yards. I think it's Joe Burrow has 73 yards lost in sacks, and Najee Harris has gained 72 yards on the ground. That's absolute insanity after 2 weeks. Najee Harris needs to turn it up. He plays Thursday night against the Browns. So with that quick turnaround, I don't know, he had an injury scare week 1 and then came back and played week 2. Still doesn't look like the back who, well, actually technically he kind of does look like the back. He's just not getting the ball. So we'll see. We'll see what he turns out to be in another couple weeks. It's kind of too early to jump to any conclusions, write anybody off. Could just have a couple down weeks or things, get people getting used to the playlist. See, on the bench, we had some decent performers. Daniel Jones led to a victory, another field goal fest, but did enough to get the win. Only threw for 176 yards, kind of sad. I think he definitely he's fighting for his NFL career at this point, and I don't really see it. I don't see it from him. I kind of hope he does. I'm rooting for Daniel Jones. I feel like being in the New York market, he gets a lot more hate heaped on him. I think he does have talent. He's able to kind of be one of those middle. I don't think he'll ever be a top talent as far as quarterbacks go. Definitely between maybe a 18 to 22, 24 range. Still a solid quarterback. Not going to really hurt you, but may not necessarily help you. I don't know. I believe in Daniel Jones. I think he can do better than what he's shown so far. But hey, the Giants are one of 4 teams now that are undefeated. So they're doing something right. Jeff Wilson, 18 carries, almost 20 carries, 20 touches though, and had over 100 yards. Am I reading it right? Yep, over 100 yards. So definitely a productive day. Touchdown would have been fantastic for him, but he's producing, stepping in for Eli Mitchell. I know the Niners lost one of their rookies, the hyphened last name. Sorry, escapes me at this point. And then they signed Marlon Mack from the practice squad. So anyone looking out there for waivers, Marlon Mack might be a halfway decent pickup. I don't know about Jeff Wilson's durability issues, if there is any, if there isn't. But he might be someone to just keep an eye on. Michael Carter definitely had a worse involvement than he did week 1. But the Jets were able to squeak out a win against Cleveland. Not going to dwell on that too much. I do want to throw out a stat, and this is probably just the most Cleveland thing ever. I think it was Field Yates? Somebody put a tweet out there that in the last 2 minutes of regulation, a team winning by 13 points, 2 touchdowns, 2 scores, I think it's at least 13 points. A team winning by 13 points has won the last 2,229 games. The Browns destroyed that. By the way, the team that last blew that lead was also the Cleveland Browns. Very, very upsetting, but definitely the most Cleveland thing I could have heard today. Definitely a little upset. The special teams, Cade York, the savior last week, week 1, the savior week 1, definitely kind of choked it on the field goal try. The extra point try, I did missed it. I didn't actually see it, so I don't know if it was close or if it was shanked, but that's upsetting. But the fact that they were up by 13 with 1:22 left, I'm harping on it. I'm starting. I'm gonna stop before I get too far down this rabbit hole. I'm sad. Kenneth Walker finally got some run. Got just a couple touches, 6 touches, nothing too crazy, but he's starting to get some run. I'm sure a lot of the usage, the limited usage, was due to the fact that he's still working his way back from a hernia and just kind of also is a rookie. So, Allen Robinson, 15.3 points, did pretty good. Actually had a touchdown called back due to a penalty. No. Officials blew the whistle halfway through the play, and they called it back. And then there was another attempt in the back of the end zone, back left of the end zone, that he was shoved out of bounds. So Allen Robinson is getting targeted in the red zone. Allen Robinson is getting more involved. He had 2 targets week 1. He got 5 this game. I think the Rams, for whatever reason, kind of struggled. The fact that it was 31-27 against Atlanta is concerning for the Rams. They're 1-1, but I don't know. It's a very shaky 1-1. But Allen Robinson, I think he's trending upwards. He'll be definitely more involved, especially if the Rams are unable to stop other teams. They may be passing a lot more than running. Robbie Anderson, kind of had a big dud after his big game last week. Only 5 targets, but I think he had 10 targets 8 targets week 1. That could stabilize anywhere between 6 to 7 to 8. Still may produce value, but again, a boom-bust player. He needs that big long touchdown to have value. Mecole Hardman, 4 targets, 3 catches, 49 yards, pretty respectable. They're kind of that Thursday night game, the Chargers and Chiefs. Honestly, it felt like everybody was super sluggish and didn't start picking it up till the second half. I'm a little disappointed by that game, but I was really hoping there'd be more sparks. Maybe next time they play. We'll see what happens. Pickens got his 2nd catch of the year. Definitely kind of one of those, bring them on slow, but they don't have too many targets to really pass around. So one of the kind of crazier stat lines out of all the people that are even on, like, what is this? How many did he get? Hold on. I'm going to look up to Tyreek Hill had 13 targets. So did Chris Olave, had 13 targets. Jameis Winston kept trying to chuck it to him deep, and I think they had 1 big catch, but otherwise he only caught 5 of his 13 targets. So that's a really bad percentage. Very sad. Got 80 yards, lost a fumble, still got 12 points, so still not terrible. But he's a rookie, so he's very, very fluid with his route running. Hopefully Jameis Winston can clean up his accuracy, and we'll see if they can connect. Michael Thomas is doing well. Jarvis Landry did amazing week 1. We'll talk about Jarvis a little bit in probably a couple minutes. Dallas Goedert, definitely one that was scary. He did well, 5 of 6, 82 yards. He did most of that damage the final drive before the end of the half. And that was kind of crazy for me because I was playing Dallas Goedert in a couple other leagues, and that brought – I was winning. I was doing a play-by-play with Whisker Biscuits, and I had like a 99% win chance in one ESPN league and an 80% in another. Playing Dallas Goedert, mind you, and it went from 99 and 80% chance in those 2 leagues all the way down to like 84 and 54 or something, 80 and 54, 60. It was close. It was driving me mad. But when people got taken out in the Buffalo game, and also Goddard only got targeted, I think, 1 more time. And every time early on, he had 2 passes in a row that he caught. That got called back by penalties. Both of them actually ineligible man downfield, funnily enough. But Dallas got 13.2 points. I'm not going to say they're one of the better tight ends. Actually, probably the 2nd best tight end this week, I believe. So, still very, very good. Very good stats for Dallas Goedert, one of the more productive tight ends. So that was Big Papa Swag. Moving over to Nashi. See how he did. Matt Stafford had a decent game. 2 picks. Definitely probably not one of his better games, but 272 yards, 3 touchdowns. Did what he could to win. Fantasy-wise, just under 25 points. That's good enough to help you out. But unfortunately for Nashi, the rest of his bench, most of the rest of his team didn't really help him out. Joe Mixon, their loss to Dallas, couldn't get it going. 57 yards on the ground, 3 catches, 26 yards, no TDs, no big plays, 11.3 points. Kind of hitting the same stride as disappointing running back play this week, at least in this matchup. Ramondre Stevenson, 9 carries, 47 yards, 1 catch for 4 yards. Ramondre Stevenson, his role was kind of New England is just a real flummoxed to figure out this running back. And I think everybody else in the fantasy community, a lot of people they just stay away from Bill Belichick because he does not care about fantasy. He doesn't care about your fantasy team. He wants to put the people out that are going to win. Damian Harris is the touchdown machine. He was last year. He's kind of filling that role again. He's still getting carries. And who's their other back? And Stevenson, I projected myself, I would have thought if he's not going to take over as lead back, he's going to be that third down back. And honestly, he's not. He's just kind of spelling Damian Harris. And I mean, they are running, but yeah, they're not. He is not getting the run and the effectiveness that I was hoping and thinking would happen. 6.1 points. It's just unfortunate. The only person, one of two real players to do well, technically three, but I'm still a little salty. For the Cleveland Browns, in the New York Jets. I'm just talking. Amari Cooper, 9 catches, 101 yards, and a touchdown. Finally came alive. Everybody was really worried about him last week when he wasn't really targeted. Amari Cooper came out and said, I'm not worried. I'm going to do whatever I can to help the team win. We won last week. He got involved. We lost. Very sad. He did great. Him and Nick Chubb. And we'll talk about Chubb later. But they both, talking about Cooper. He's definitely one of the only bright spots on this Cleveland team right now. I don't believe the 25.1 points that he got. I do not think he's going to be able to put anywhere close to that every week. It's probably going to be more like probably 12 to 15 as like a good average. But we will see. I do that a lot. But I keep prefacing this. I need to stop. It's like Daniel Dopp on these podcasts. I'm curious. Anyway. Listen to too much of those. Juju, 4 points, 3 catches for 10 yards. Woo, super effective. I really don't think Juju is going to be a factor in this KC offense. And in a game that was supposed to be a shootout, he got 3 targets. He caught them all. He only got 10 yards, but I really didn't like Juju. I don't like MVS either as far as their fit in this offense. I've always thought that Mecole Hardman's going to do better. And, I mean, granted, he got 1 more target. He had the same amount of catches, but he had 39 more yards. He also got a carry. Hardman, speaking of Hardman, going back to Hardman, it's just I don't know. It's kind of tough to figure out this KC offense outside of Mahomes and Kelsey. Albert O, nothing. Nice big goose egg. Two targets, no catches. Definitely a non-factor. He did a little better week 1, but that was the flashy, cool thing to do in that Seattle-Denver game was to throw to the tight ends because they've both got like 4 or 5 of them. So Alberto, I think, is a really good young tight end. I think they're going to have more. They're going to have better game scripts eventually. They just have a lot of mouths to feed in Denver. A lot of good, solid players trying to get targets. Alberto may never get a lot of targets. Hopefully he can capitalize and make do with the ones he gets. You got Jerry Jeudy, you got Cortland Sutton, KJ Hamler, Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, and then Nguyeman. Like, you got 6 people there looking to get the ball. I don't know if Russell Wilson can distribute that enough to where everyone can eat like they want, but he just got the short end of the stick this week. DJ Moore finally got a touchdown, which is great. He definitely is. It seems at times can be allergic to the end zone in previous years. I think 4 touchdowns is about his average a year. He's getting close. He's getting close to his average. He better slow down now before he gets too many too early. 3 catches, 43 yards, and 1 touchdown in the loss to the Giants. Baker Mayfield just doing Baker Mayfield things. I'm kind of hoping that they can figure that out. You have too many top options to not. But that would just be, Baker Mayfield literally went from a brown team to a, what are you going to call it? The Panthers blue, a teal blue, like a light blue. Whatever the Panthers blue is, essentially that's the uniform change. The personnel stayed the same. Line is a little bit worse. You got a lot of unproven tackles there in Carolina, but they've got DJ Moore, you got Robbie Anderson, so you have your dependable, great wide receiver. Then you have your deep threat. You also have one of the best running backs in football. Stop me if this sounds familiar. A decent defense. The Browns' defense, I think, is a lot better, which is what keeps them in a lot more games. But yeah, I mean, if Baker Mayfield can't put this together, he's going to be a perennial 24th overall quarterback, pretty much. I don't know why I'm sticking with that 24 number. But here I go again. Just going to do it. 180. Either way, yep. DJ Moore, I think he's got a lot better games ahead of him. This one, he's definitely starting slow. I think it's more on Baker Mayfield trying to get a grasp of the offense and getting everything. I haven't really been able to see a lot of the Carolina's offense or defense. Actually, I haven't really catch a lot of games. I had a lot of problems. I don't know if anyone else here. I'm gonna have a little sidebar real quick. I went and did the NFL Plus. I got the free trial, and then I was able to watch the first almost half of the Browns game. And then it stopped, and it literally cut me out. And the only games I could watch was the Steelers, Patriots, and then was it the Bucks, Saints? That was the only two games I could watch. I was fine watching, and all of a sudden it stopped. I was so frustrated. It got to the point where at the end of the night, by the 3:00 games, I canceled my NFL Plus membership and just got Red Zone instead. So now I'll get bits and pieces of everybody. That way I can actually watch football. And that one was a struggle and a half just to get that to work too. So I think it's just more the app is fooking up, but we'll see. Excuse the language. All right, Deontay Johnson, the final player he had playing this week. Deontay Johnson is his second flex. 10 targets, definitely a healthy target share, 6 catches, 57 yards, and a 2-point conversion. He got 13.7 points. Deontay Johnson, I think, translated from last year to this year, his target share is up there. We'll see if he can do better with than the 6 yard per attempt. No, that's a quarterback. Anyway, he's got to do a little bit better efficiency-wise and try to get into the end zone there, but this was kind of a low-scoring game anyway. So we'll see what ends up happening there in the Steeler country. I wonder what's going to actually go on and how long Mitchell Trubisky is going to have that starting job. I know I've said this before. I don't know who's heard it, but I actually went to high school with Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, we ran an air raid offense. Our school did, so our running backs were essentially just a fifth wide or sixth wide receiver, depending on if we had a tight end out there. So I mean, it'd be 5 personnel. Yeah, because I can do math. It's not a 6. That's so stupid. Wow. No, pretty much was just a wide receiver out of the backfield. They got run. They did run the ball, and they sometimes would actually have good running games. But for the most part, it was an air raid offense, kind of like Texas Tech or Mike Leach, even as he moved now to Washington State. But Mitchell Trubisky definitely did really well there, and then went to North Carolina. I don't know why I'm talking about him so much, but we'll see. Whether Mitch, or is it going to end up being Kenny Pickett? I don't know. Either way, they kind of look to me to be the similar quarterbacks as far as arm talent, mobility. I don't know. We'll see. So on Naschy's bench, let's see. He had Derek Carr, almost 23 points. Lost to Arizona. They had that game. Oh, my word. Arizona came back from the dead, tied it up in overtime, and then went to overtime, and then ended up winning it in overtime. I wasn't paying too much attention to that. I saw caught near the end of it. I thought Arizona was dead in the water, and they didn't. That's kind of the theme, though. We've had a couple games where that happened this week. Sorry, the Arizona Raider game, the Jets-Cleveland game, and the Dolphins-Baltimore game, which I'm sure we'll talk quite a bit about, in which Tyreek Hill, 51 points. So I did talk a little bit about it. Moving on to your next quarterback, he has 22.5 points. Trevor Lawrence. That's one of the biggest shocks of the week. Outside of the huge collapse Cleveland did, the Jaguars blanking the Colts 24-0. My goodness. Oh, that was absolute madness. 25 of 30, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 carries for 11 yards. Trevor Lawrence had the game of his life. You'd like to see a little bit more yardage, maybe up to 250, 300 would be great. Another touchdown, a little more yards on the ground, but he definitely did not make rookie mistakes. You'd hope not. He's not a rookie anymore. Definitely had a bit of a tough learning curve. His rookie season, his next season is starting to turn around, it looks like. Funny stat that I didn't mention after week 1. The AFC South, no team won in week 1, and 2 of those teams played each other. And now the only team in the AFC South with a win is the Jaguars. The Jaguars are now number 1 in the AFC South. That is crazy. Absolute madness. Okay, Raheem Mostert, you got a lot more carries, got a lot more usage than I would have imagined. Chase Edmonds was that high-priced free agent, kind of what you always hear, and he didn't get as many. And Mostert was an afterthought week 1, and week 2 he got a lot more involved. I don't know what this is going to mean moving forward. It might be a week-to-week thing. You never know. The Dolphins are one of the teams, kind of like what it seemed like in the preseason before they cut Marlon Mack with the Houston Texans. They just keep getting more running backs. Like that's going to help them pass the ball more and move the ball more. I don't know. The Dolphins have a lot of running backs. They still have Gaskin, Salvin Ahmed. I think one of those might be on the practice squad or released. Mostert, Edmonds. They have running backs. Alvin Kamara missed. He was out. Hopefully he'll be back next week. Missed the game against the Bucks. Moving on to Edwards-Helaire, 16.8. One of the more nice surprises of this season. Edwards-Helaire kind of had been written off as far as the fantasy darling that he was expected to be. He's been producing this season so far. I know it's only been 2 weeks, but he's had 2 very productive games. He's been the 3rd best fantasy producer after Kelsey and Mahomes for the Chiefs, which is interesting to say the least. I definitely would not have expected that. I mean, I'm biased, and I know that I've said this before, but I would have thought Hardman would have been that number 3. Maybe then Juju Smith-Schuster, then Edwards-Helaire. The running game isn't always huge in that one. He did have a huge rush of a 40-plus yard run. He had 8 carries, 74 yards, 4 catches, and 44 yards. There's a lot of 4s in there. So he did get only 12 touches, but he had over 100 and, quick math here, 118 yards on the ground. 118 scrimmage yards and no touchdowns. Okay, if he had a touchdown, he had an even bigger day. I think he had 1 or 2 touchdowns. No, 2 touchdowns last game. Let's see. Jarvis Landry had a down game. I know I'd mentioned him again. Only because I literally looked up and there he was. 4 catches, 5 yards, 25 yards. 4 catches out of 5 targets, 25 yards. Definitely a much lesser showing than he had week 1. Kind of just balled out week 1 and kind of falling back down to earth. He's going to be somebody who's going to get those dirty yards quick out up and outs and catch the ball reliably. He's definitely one of the better slot receivers in Miami, and then through the first season or so with the Browns, maybe into the second season, he was one of the top slot receivers, heading towards being one of the best slot receivers. I would have said period. I really liked him. He had the most catches in the first 4 years. I think he had almost 4 400 and some catches, averaging more than 100 catches in his first 4 or 5 years. It's nuts. Yeah, definitely someone who will probably hit and miss more for fantasy-wise, but he's going to be a guy that's going to be a big leader for that Saints offense, and he's going to get a lot of catches for first downs. I think if we had the stat turned on for every time you get a first down, you get a point, I think Jarvis Landry would be one of the ones that if he gets 4 catches for 25 yards, he's going to have 4 first downs. That's just kind of the guy he's looked for on that. We need to get a first. Devontae Smith, 15 points. He had caught every ball coming his way, 7 catches for 80 yards. He had no catches in week 1, which was a huge shock to me. I think he had 3-4 targets. I could be mistaken on that one. I don't really want to look. But they completely dominated the Vikings. I know it's only 24-7, which it feels weird saying they dominated the Vikings when in reality the game that had ended an hour and a half or started an hour and a half earlier, the Buffalo Bills truly dominated the Tennessee Titans. But outside of the one touchdown drive that Minnesota had, Kirk Cousins would throw picks like it's his job to Darius Slay and another guy. I think he threw 3 picks. They just couldn't move the ball. They couldn't get the ball to Justin Jefferson. Darius Slay shut down Justin Jefferson. I know we'll talk about him in a minute, his stats and stuff. But Devontae Smith was probably, I think, the best receiver there. The most yardage, though, went to Goddard. Goddard had 86 yards. And then Devontae Smith had 80. I think A.J. Brown had somewhere around there. But 15 points, a good, solid game. Romeo Doubs, 2 catches for 27 yards. Not much of a factor yet. We'll see if he can blossom into being a little bit more dependable in the future. Fant, 2 catches for 11 yards. Again, the tight end fest that was week 1 between the Broncos and the Seahawks definitely did not translate into that same thing. Irv Smith, the top tight end. No, that's a lie. Top tight end on the bench. Sorry, I'm looking at the stats, and I thought, the top... No. 14.6 points. He had 5 catches, 36 yards, and a touchdown. He dropped a huge pass that probably would have gone for 6 or at least a 40-plus yard. He probably could have had 25 or so points. Had a just big drop. That was... did not like to see that. So that's the first matchup in week 1. Looking down here, 38 minutes to talk about that. I'm really not trying to talk about myself here. All right, next matchup. The name is P and Blue Mitten. This one was over thanks to Lamar Jackson, mostly. But Blue Mitten won 152-115. Let's see. The name is P had Patrick Mahomes, 24.3 points, 2 touchdowns, one deep touch, a 40-plus yard touchdown. 235 yards passing, so the same amount as Trevor Lawrence. That's scary. The receivers are definitely, outside of Kelsey, definitely a question mark as to who's going to shake out. And I think it'll be another couple weeks where you kind of start seeing somebody emerge toward the top there. Ezekiel Elliott, big letdown, 5.9 points. He had 53 rushing yards and 1 catch for -4 yards. So that's just that's sad. Ezekiel Elliott, definitely a very, very down week. I don't know if he's going to end up ever getting really that much more involved, but it's definitely a 1A, 1B situation with Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. Antonio Gibson, 12.1 points. 28 yards on the ground, 13 in the air, 2 catches, and a touchdown on the ground. That's the only reason why Gibson even got more than 6.1 points. Antonio Gibson, big letdown. When he was drafted, when we started our league last year, he was drafted, I think, in the 18th or something. That was his projected. I think he was projected for 14 or so. I think he went near the end of the second round. I only look at that because I was going to target Gibson myself if he made it to me in the 3rd. Really glad I didn't. I did not get him. But at the time, he was being billed as the CMC Light. Diet CMC, or whatever you want to call it. The next up-and-coming thing. He was a wide receiver at Memphis, I believe. But 28 yards on the ground, definitely a very ineffective day. He averaged 2 yards per carry and had 2 catches. When they brought back McKissick, I pretty much figured after Gibson lost the starting job to Robinson at the time that he was going to just be a non-factor, if not traded or released. But now that Brian Robinson got shot, Gibson retained the starting role, or got the starting role by default. And I had figured, okay, McKissick would be that passing down back. That week 1 it didn't happen. I'm not sure what McKissick did this week, but Gibson's not going away, it seems. Not yet, at least. All right, 12.1 points for him. So Deebo Samuel, 15.7 points. He had 4 carries, 53 yards, and a 40-plus yard run. So he's definitely getting a lot more carries. He had 5 catches for 44 yards. He's getting used all over the place in San Fran, and I did not expect, after the contract, the dispute where the contract language states he gets a bunch of bonuses for it, clearly not scaring the coaching staff. The game plan or whatever, they're gonna give him carries. I actually am curious, what did he get last week? He had poop. What am I looking at? Why am I not able to move? All right, well, this just is sad. I'm trying to move this over. I can't do it. Okay. I cannot tell what... Oh, here it is. I just got to go down, I guess. No. Whatever. Anyway, he got carries. That's great analysis there. All right, moving on. CeeDee Lamb, 15.1 points, 11 targets, 75 yards. He had 7 catches, 75 yards. So he did a lot better this week than he did last week. Obviously, you went from Dak to Rush, and now you had a week of practice. I think that trying to get on the same page. Everyone did bad. Mostly everybody did bad week 1. But they were able to turn around for CeeDee. He also got a carry for 6 yards. I'm assuming that's on a jet sweep. Most receivers, that's how they're going to get it, except for unless you're Deebo Samuel, you just get it lining up in the backfield. 15.1 points is respectable. Definitely something on the lower end that you'd expect, but it is what it is. There I go again. All right, anyway. Darren Waller, 17 points. A good showing for Darren. He had 6 catches, 50 yards, and a touchdown. A little bit not concerned, a little bit surprised with the number of targets with 8, but he's going to be someone that I think is going to end up having more of a downward trend as the year progresses. But he's here now. He's producing. Ride that wave. 17 points is definitely great for a tight end. David Montgomery, 15.6 points. 15 carries for 122 yards, caught both of his targets, and got 14 yards off that. Neither team, Green Bay or Chicago, no one could stop the run, and they just kept trying to have Justin Fields. Honestly, the Green Bay's DBs are a strength for them, and it just wasn't working. And David Montgomery got 122 yards on the ground. He definitely should have got. They should have used him. I don't know if I want to say more, but he got 15 carries. I feel like if they gave him the ball a little bit more, that the game, especially in certain situations, the game would have been a little bit less than out of hand. Yeah, 15.6 points. And final flex here. Kareem Hunt, 13 carries, 58 yards, 2 catches for 16 yards. No touchdowns. He had 2 touchdowns in week 1. And this was a little bit of a obviously a downward. Well, it's less than that. But this is about what you'd expect. Obviously, touchdowns are volatile. You can't expect to get 1, 2, or any each week. But having 13 carries is still a good amount, a really good amount. Having 15 touches, period. He's definitely being heavily involved. So 9.4 points. It could very easily have been 20. Unfortunately, that wouldn't have changed anything this week for this matchup, but it's just how it is. There was a trade. Patrick Mahomes was traded for Kyler Murray after the Thursday game. So Patrick Mahomes here is pictured, but he's actually on Blue Mitten's team. So it's just interesting. Kyler Murray had 27.88 points. I think if that trade had gone through, I think Kyler Murray may have been played. I don't know. I'm not going to play manager for the name is P's team, but 277 yards on almost 50 attempts, touchdown, 2-point conversion, threw 1 pick, had 5 carries for 28 yards and a touchdown, and had a 2-point conversion running. So they made 2 2-point conversions. I believe those were at the end of the game. Again, I didn't really watch the end of that game. Shame on me to not be able to talk about it. That was one of those that was a lot more exciting. Kyler Murray apparently didn't play as many video games this week and was able to, although at first it definitely looked like he did, but yeah. Here we go. Justin Fields. This is where I was looking to see. So he has Montgomery and Fields. 11 pass attempts. 11 pass attempts. 11 pass attempts. 7 for 11, 70 yards and a pick. He had 8 carries, 20 yards, and a touchdown. That was a hard-fought touchdown. I did actually see that one. That was good for him. 7 yards out or so, and he fought to cross that line. It was great. Yeah, they are not using whoever's calling plays for Chicago. It's better than Matt Nagy? But now, I mean, you gotta focus here. How do you let your quarterback? How do you attempt only 11 passes? That's crazy for me. Trey Lance, R.I.P. Trey Lance. Not really. I had him in 2 ESPN leagues, and he was starting in 1. He got the 2.5 points, and that was it. I still ended up winning, but only because I had Diggs, who, again, we'll talk about here in the matchup, I think. But, yeah, that one was very unfortunate to see for Trey Lance. He's supposed to be, I know the name is P was very, very excited for Trey Lance this season. Very sad. Rojo, he's still on a roster? He's out. Is he actually playing? I don't know his status. All right, Devin Singletary. 6 carries for 19 yards, 2 targets, 2 yards. Wow, that was heavily utilized. I saw Devin Singletary get a couple of runs, and he got like a 6-yarder and what looked like a 8 or 9 yards. I thought Devin Singletary was killing it. Apparently, I was not looking at the correct player, or at least I was assuming it was Singletary. It might have been someone like Moss or Cook. We'll see. I'm kind of looking up and over, kind of cheating to see over Blue Mittens. It looks like Cook got 11 carries, 53 yards, so much more efficient than Singletary. Yeah, but anyway, back to the name is P. Khalil Herbert had 4 carries, 38 yards. Was definitely very, very efficient. 1 catch for 3 yards, so 5.1 points. I mean, on the bench wasn't going to make much of a difference. Khalil Herbert's only really going to get involved and be fantasy relevant if something happens to Montgomery. It's just kind of one of those, the way it is. Tyler Lockett had a big game, 9 catches for 107 yards. That was would have definitely been nice to have on the field instead of being on the bench. But what can you do? It's really tough to guess when Tyler Lockett's going to have a good game, especially now that Geno Smith is the quarterback. Chris Godwin was out this game that was planned. Let's see, Metcalf, 6 targets, 4 catches, 35 yards, nothing else. 7.5 points. Yeah, Geno Smith. That's the end of that. That's all I need to say. Donovan Peoples-Jones, he had 11 targets week 1. He had 1 target, and it was near the back of the end zone, which was actually caught just barely out of bounds. That would have been Sauce Gardner's first touchdown that he had ever given up at any level, any competition. Crazy. Donovan Peoples-Jones just pushed out of bounds. They called him out correctly that he did not catch it. And I think as far as Sauce Gardner is concerned, I think he was the one touchdown, deep touchdown. I forget who it was, but he might have been responsible for giving up. It was a blown coverage. It looked like a zone. Thought he had a safety to hand it off to, and there was nobody there. So I think that goes down as Sauce Gardner, but I don't know if officially that is. Just you want to protect that lore that is Sauce Gardner, as I don't know if it's actually going to be credited to him or not. But Donovan Peoples-Jones, definitely a letdown. Chase Claypool, 4 catches for 26 yards. Pretty much on the same level that Metcalf was. 4 catches and a middling amount of yards. It's unfortunate. Rondale Moore was out, and Sky Moore out, or didn't even get targeted. That's sad. All right, so that's the name is P. Let's move over to Blue Mitten. Lamar Jackson, 60.62 points. Holy mackerel. Great game for Lamar Jackson. Could not have done anything more. Threw for over 300 yards, 318 to be exact. 3 touchdowns. Had a 50-plus yard touchdown. He also had 9 Ks for 119 yards and a touchdown. One of those was more than a 50-yarder. Lamar Jackson now has sole possession for most 100-yard rushing games by a quarterback. He has 9 in his career, which overtakes Michael Vick, who had 8. The number 1 quarterback this year thus far. Definitely killing it. DeAndre Swift, a good game this this week. Only had 5 carries. That doesn't compute. How did that happen? Maybe just pass happy? I guess we'll see what I don't know what Goff had. Passing wise, 5 carries, 56 yards, 40-yard rush, 2 catches for 31 yards and a touchdown. That touchdown really boosted. Did he get hurt? What happened? I didn't catch the Lions game, so I don't really know what happened there. All right, moving on to Darrell Henderson, 10.7 points. He had a nice, wide-open touchdown that had just given Akers a couple of carries. Next thing you know, they give Henderson in. What does he do? Get a touchdown. 10 carries, 47 yards, and that TD gives him 10 points. Yeah, it definitely looks like a 1A, 1B situation with Henderson and Akers. But I think Akers had more carries this game, a lot more than the 3 that he had last game for no yards. So we'll see as we go on. Again, we'll see. Well, you know what? We'll see how this shakes out. Screw it. I'm just going to embrace it. We'll see. God, I'm going to get so sick of that, hearing that back. Sorry for all those who are listening to this. Mike Williams, 25.3 points. One of the lone bright spots for Kansas City this game. 8 catches out of 10 and targets, 113 yards, and a touchdown. Did well. This was one of the boom weeks for Mike Williams. You'd like to see a lot more of those boom versus the duds. Just the way of the deep ball. Mike Williams, 25.3 points. Cortland Sutton, 19.7, had 7 catches out of 11 targets, 122 yards. No touchdowns, which would have definitely boosted him. But again, nobody was scoring touchdowns in the game with Denver. I'm not actually sure who got that score. So it had to have been one. Breaking the 9-9 tie. I don't even know if that's how it went down, but all field goals and 1 score, or 1 touchdown. Dalton Schultz got injured. Not sure how long he's going to be out. 2 catches on 4 targets for 18 yards, and he lost a fumble, so 1.8, definitely a letdown, but not like it really mattered this week, not for Blue Mitten at least. Derrick Henry had a tough time trying to get any yardage, and they were quickly down with a negative game script, and the Titans just tried throwing it, and Tannehill got chased out before the end of the third quarter. Next thing you know, Malik Willis is in. He was supposed to sit all year. 25 yards and a touchdown. Going to be I think next week he'll definitely bounce back. Derrick Henry will still Derrick Henry. Just a really, really tough defense. A.J. Dillon, 18 carries, 61 yards, 1 catch for 6 yards. We'll go over what happened with Aaron Jones, the counterpart. But like I said earlier, the Packers and the Bears ran over each other. It's pretty much they didn't need to throw the ball. They just kept handing the ball off, and they kept getting a whole bunch of yards. So Jamal Williams had 12 carries. Ooh, maybe there was an injury because DeAndre had 5 carries. I don't know what happened there. Someone fill me in. Jamal Williams had 12 carries for 53 yards and a 7-yard reception, giving him 7 points. So not the 17.7 that DeAndre Swift had, but still very, very productive. By productive, I'm actually meaning getting a lot of opportunities, as in the touches. 13 touches. Still good. ETN would have thought he would have had more points. He got 8.3 points. He would have thought he had more in this 24-0 blowout, but I guess not. 9 carries for 20 yards, 3 catches, 33 yards. Kind of a letdown for the first 2 weeks. We'll see if ETN can turn that around. I like his opportunities. I like the chemistry with Lawrence that he has. He just needs more opportunity, and James Robinson isn't getting in the way of that for sure. James Cook, mentioned him, 11 carries. I mentioned him already, but 11 carries, 53 yards. Definitely got more run than Singletary did. I don't know if that's going to be a permanent fixture or just the way the game was going. Maybe most of that might have been garbage time carries. I'm just guessing. Valdes-Scantling, 7 targets. So they are trying to throw it downfield to Scantling. He's just not catching it. He only got 2 catches for 13 yards. That's a big letdown. So clearly, Mahomes is throwing it. And Mahomes was, I'm just trying to remember this, 24 for 35. I could just scroll up. 24 for 35, and Valdes-Scantling had 5 of those drops. So if you take those away, he was 24 for 30, which is almost identical to 25 for 30, I believe, that Trevor Lawrence had for the exact same amount of yards. So Valdes-Scantling is making Mahomes less than Trevor Lawrence. Just kidding. This was just a bad game for Scantling. I don't know if that deep ball is ever really going to connect, but a few times, very low percentage. I still like Hardman underneath as that second option after Kelsey, but that's just my own personal belief. T. Higgins, here we go. He's the one that had the most catches, targets, yards, and touchdowns for the wide receivers, pass catchers. As I mentioned with Jamar Chase, he got 6 catches, 71 yards, and a touchdown, so it's 19.1 points. Again, I'll mention it again. The T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, both very, very talented. Joe Mixon, also very talented. You're going to have weeks where one or the other may do better. Even if Jamar Chase is one of the top wide receivers, T. Higgins is going to outplay him week to week. He's not just going to be the one, always Jamar Chase on top. So good for you. T. Higgins, way to bounce back after the concussion. Last week he only had a couple of points. He got knocked out after like 2 catches. Brandon Ayuk, 8 targets, which is good. 5 catches, 63 yards, nothing else. 11.3 points. He's supposed to have a breakout year, and he's definitely doing a lot better than he did last year. So that alone is a breakout, even if he doesn't do any better or worse than this. So we'll see. KJ Osborne, 2 catches, 25 yards, kind of non-factor. They've kind of incorporated Jalen Reagor, it seems, more than KJ Osborne. So I think it's a little bit of a shock, but hey. Drake London was probably the reason that they were so close in terms of Atlanta and the Rams. Had 24.6 points. He had 8 catches on 12 targets, 86 yards and a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. Definitely starting his young career off the right way. I think he had like 12 points or so in week 1 to 24 already week 2, so he's definitely doing well. Tyler Higbee was a late pickup for Blue Mitten, but he had 9 targets, 7 catches, and 71 yards, so 14.1 points. So that's good. It's good to see. Good to see Higbee. So that kind of looks like the hierarchy in targets share from week 1 to week 2 seems to be Cooper Kupp, then Higbee, and then Robinson. But we'll see if that holds. So that was the matchup between Blue Mitten and the Name is P. Again, Blue Mitten on top, 152 to 115. Oh, crap. I pushed a button. There we go. Oh, this is only the third matchup? I've been talking for an hour. This is terrible. I am so bad. Okay. Hopefully you're still with me, because this here is the most exciting matchup. Whisker Biscuits and center field. I think was it like 8 or 13 or something percent that Whisker Biscuits had excuse me, coming into Monday night. Whew. He had a couple people put on a show, so let's get into it. He was on top, 173.92 to 166.78. This was a big matchup, and there were a lot of factors that led to Whisker getting the win. Let's dive in. So Hurts balled out, 41 points. Absolutely madness, 26 of 31, 333 yards, a touchdown, and a pick. Wasn't so great, but he had a nice deep throw, 50-plus yard touchdown. Had 11 carries, 7 yards, and 2 scores on the ground. Oh, the score, poop on a stick. I need to correct myself from earlier. The Justin Fields touchdown, I was picturing it was Justin Fields, but it was actually Jalen Hurts. So my bad for the misinformation earlier. I'm correcting it now. Jalen Hurts was the one with that really tough score, and was his first touchdown on the ground. I actually don't recall Justin Fields' score on the ground, which one it was. Either way, very, very good. 41 points, very solid. Leonard Fournette, 65 scoreless yards, 2 catches for 9 yards, so we had 9.4 points. This Tampa Bay offense had a really tough time, really tough sled, and it was like 3-3 at the half. It was the end there that kind of made the difference. The 20-10, I believe, there was a touchdown near late, Rashad Perriman, if I remember correctly. But otherwise, kind of a very defensive struggle. In game in which Lattimore and Mike Evans got booted, and Mike Evans got a 1-game suspension, so he's going to be on the bench this week for week 3. James Conner got 7.1 points. He had an ankle injury, so he was out most of the game. He had 7 carries, 25 yards, and 2 catches for 26. Until that point, he's kind of going to be one of those guys that if he doesn't get a touchdown, which he more often than not will probably get a touchdown, but he's the guy that if he doesn't get a touchdown, he's not going to have a great score. Kind of reminds me of the guy he plays across, but I'll talk about that in a minute. A.J. Brown, a little bit of a letdown as far as my expectations, my own personal expectations. I thought Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown were going to have a huge game against Minnesota. He only had 5 catches for 69 yards. It almost seemed like they were not targeting him on purpose. They were really trying to force the ball to Devontae Smith, and then at some points Dallas Goedert. They had a lot of penalties that pulled a lot of those back. For me, it's thankfully. But A.J. Brown had a really big week 1, and we'll see if he can keep that going. I think he's gonna end up averaging closer to 20, 22 points a week. So, a game. So This could be just a write-off low score of the year. Stephon Diggs, historic. Well, not necessarily historic, but probably the best. Tyreek Hill had the best game. Stephon Diggs had the close second best game. 12 catches on 14 targets, 148 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a 40-plus yard touchdown. I think it was a 46-yard strike. 47.8 points. Diggs was the reason that this game started to get close, and it started as Diggs was producing. This score was getting closer and closer, and I know that obviously center field has Josh Allen, so that was starting to offset. But once Jalen Hurts started to go off, the quarterback started to kind of be comparable as far as score goes, and it wasn't necessarily happening with who center field had left playing on Monday, which was Justin Jefferson and Knox. So that one of the reasons why it was so close, because I was watching it. I could. How many? He had like 70 points or 70 something. It was like 70 to 117. He had to make up like 40 points in that game, 30 points or whatever it was. But oh man, I'm sorry. This is watching football, watching Red Zone, watching all, and then also keeping an eye on this game here. As far as I'm personally concerned, I was really only watching to make sure Goddard didn't do bad, and I was like cheering for Diggs because in the league that I was playing against Goddard, I had Diggs. But that was nuts. Diggs had a fantastic week. Fantastic. Kudos, Diggs. Zach Ertz, dependable. 8 catches, 11 targets. That I didn't see coming, but 75 yards. Was his safety blanket, it seemed, and definitely produced. Aaron Jones had the game. How many carries did Dylan get? 12? I don't know. Aaron Jones had 15 carries and 3 targets. He made the most of every single one of those. He had 170 yards, scrimmage yards, and 2 touchdowns. Woo! That's nuts. And the 3 catches. That's the best game Aaron Jones had. I know that the week 1 was what happened. A.J. Dillon blew out Aaron Jones in terms of fantasy points in week 1, and A.J. Dillon had almost 20 points, I believe. I just talked about him, and now I can't remember. And Aaron Jones had 32. So that was another big reason that Whisker Biscuits was able to keep it close. And then Davante Adams, what a dud. 2 catches for 12 yards and a touchdown. The touchdown really saved the game. This saved the day here for his score. How do you go 2 for 7, 12 yards and a touchdown? Outside of the touchdown, Valdez-Scantling had almost a better stat line. He did have a better stat line. 2 catches on 7 targets, and I think it was like 30 or 26 yards. So Davante Adams, mark it up as a bad game. So people are having good games, people are having bad games. I think Davante Adams is the type of receiver, one of the top receivers who's going to be able to come back from this. Russell Wilson had an off game. Threw 50% of his, only got like less than 50% completions, 219 yards, a touchdown, a pick, 2 carries for 3 yards. Far cry from the efficiency that he was able to produce. He was able to do really well statistically last week. Not great, but well. And, yeah, I just feel bad. Russell Wilson, Broncos, these guys should be, with the amount of weapons they have, they were a quarterback away, and it's just not clicking. I'm really hoping this turns around. I really am hoping this is going to turn around, but we'll see. Yeah, that was a downer as well. I also have Russell Wilson playing in some leagues. Okay. Moving on, Mac Jones had 17.68 points. He threw 35 passes, which is great for him. I don't know if he's going to attempt that many very often, but 252 passing yards, touchdown, a pick. He had a long touchdown of 40-plus yards. Not really sure the actual yardage of that one. I think it was to Aguilar, if I remember correctly. 7 carries for 6 yards. Not bad. I really do see Mac Jones as a Alex Smith game manager. Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill. Not somebody who's going to mark up the scoreboard with a whole ton of points and is going to win the game with the ball in his hand, throwing it, chucking it. It's going to be kind of game manager, doing what you can to get the yards where you need. Utilize a good ground game. Don't make stupid mistakes. That kind of game. Anyway, just a fine game manager. You're welcome. Mac Jones. All right, Melvin Gordon. Let's see, I talked about him with Javonte Williams. He had 10 carries, 1 catch for 6 yards, 47 yards on the ground. Javonte Williams had an off game as well. He had more carries and more targets, and obviously catches, but no, same amount of catches, but more targets. So Gordon is starting to take more of a back seat to Javonte Williams. Denver couldn't really get anything working against Houston because they're such a defensive juggernaut. Oh. Alrighty, Robert Woods, 4 catches, 5 yards, 39 yards. I thought Robert Woods was going to do more than this, especially with some of the reports coming out of training camp. Can't really believe all you're hearing. Tannehill was really clicking with Robert Woods. Guess not. 7.9 points. It's also the Buffalo defense this week, but he didn't really do much last week either, so it's kind of what it is. Let's see. Sammy Watkins with the 40-yard reception, 93 yards with 3 catches. 13.3 points. Sammy Watkins is definitely going to be a boomer bust. He normally is good the first 4 weeks historically, and then just kind of drops off. I know that's not like to the letter every time. He has 4 great weeks and then nothing else. But for the most part, he's good early on and just tanks the rest of it. So enjoy Sammy Watkins while he's still on a roster. Devontae Parker, absent. Actually, he was there. He just had 2 passes thrown his way. I was not expecting that. I know I mentioned that even last week. I was still shocked. I thought Devontae Parker would be more involved, but it's what it's. Allen Lazard, 3 targets for 13 yards. He had a touchdown. But holy mackerel. Now, this one was game script. This one was Green Bay's just going to run it. Screw it. They're going to run it. They don't need it. They don't need to pass the ball. There's no need. They were leading early, and Aaron Jones. They just put it on Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, and they just ran away with the game. It's a very easy day for Aaron Rodgers. Devin Duvernay. He had 2 catches for 42 yards, but he also had a 103-yard score for the on special teams. He had the opening kickoff. That kind of kicked things off. Honestly, I'm looking at it this way, and a lot of them, and this is not a hard and fast rule. This is just games that I remember. When you start the game off with a kick return touchdown, your team was going to lose. I don't know why that sticks out in my head, but I remember, was it 2007? And this is going to NCAA, so this is also one of the years that both NCAA and football and basketball, the men's team won the national championship. I believe that was Joakim Noah was on that Florida Gator team. But the Ohio State Buckeyes were playing the Gators, and Ted Ginn Jr. ran it back, got the kickoff, ran it back for a touchdown, and then everyone dogpiled on him and broke a foot and boned his foot. But they ended up losing that game to the Gators, and then the very same year, a month later, the Bears, Devin Hester returned one for a touchdown, and Peyton Manning led the Colts to a win. So you take that opening kickoff for a touchdown. Again, not a hard and fast rule, but apparently it's bad luck. Score a touchdown. Just kidding. Don't. He still got 12.2 points. he dominated in the first game as far as points because he got 2 deep touchdowns. But he didn't have a ton of targets, so I figured Devin Duvernay is going to kind of fall back to earth, and outside of the kick return touchdown, kind of did. Would have only had 6.2 points. But A.J. Green, I feel, is being way underused, especially these first 6 weeks. 3 catches, 7 targets, 16 yards, and a 2-point conversion. 6.6 points. It's kind of unfortunate. Gerald Everett, 6 catches on 10 targets for 71 yards. He almost had a touchdown. I don't know if it was overthrown or if he came down with it and his foot on the back. I can't recall now how it is, but one of those failed catches was a back of the end zone throw. So he's getting red zone looks. So we'll see what that ends up meaning for Mike Williams. Maybe it was just kind of everyone knows we're going to Mike Williams, so Chargers went elsewhere. But that's Whisker Biscuits getting his 173 points. Now we're on to center field. This was a crusher. Sorry, for center field. He had the win. He had it locked up, and then Monday Night Football happened. And even though Josh Allen got 40.6 points, still ended up not being enough, and I'll tell you why in just a little bit. Josh Allen, 26 for 38, 317 yards, 4 touchdowns. Had a deep touchdown that went to Stephon Diggs. He also had 1 carry for 10 yards. That was a really solid carry. He leapt over the guy. He leapt over the guy, got hit, and yet he still didn't come down and land. He kind of was able to bring a foot and a hand and then roll, and he ended up getting the first down, which was obviously the 10 yards. But I think it was third down or something. But it was a really effective run. I would have thought he had more than just 1 carry, but game script. He was able to pass it all over the place and do great things. Here, back to the shock of the week game with Indy dropping a nice little goose egg on Jacksonville. Taylor got 9 carries. How do you give one of the best running back as far as fantasy is concerned and right now in the NFL, you only give him 10 touches? So 9 carries, 54 yards, so he broke off 2 big ones. I think he had very low amounts of yards. I think both of them were 21 yards. So I think he had 2 carries for 42 yards and then 7 for, 12? So it was a tough game, tough sledding. Maybe Travon Walker, the number 1 overall pick for the Jaguars. Maybe he's the real deal. I don't know if he was in on that or not, but the fact that Jonathan Taylor didn't do anything speaks volumes. And his 1 catch went for 9 yards. So he had 7.3 points. That's a real downer. Saquon Barkley came back to earth after his big week 1. Didn't get in the end zone. I think that's why he came back to earth. 21 carries for 72 yards, 3 catches for 16 yards. He's great. But I think as far as fantasy is concerned, he's only really going to produce if he gets one of those huge highlight runs where he busts a 20 or 30-yard touchdown or even just 30 yards. A nice big run and then get into the end zone. But Saquon Barkley is still a great option. I had butterflies seeing him. That's going to sound weird. It comes out weird. But I really liked Saquon Barkley. I had him as a rookie in my big money league that I had to step out of. But I had CMC and Saquon Barkley, and they won me that league that year. It was great. But, yeah, it's good to see Saquon Barkley come back to form, at least week 1. And I'm kind of hoping that this is just didn't get in the end zone, so we didn't get the points. But I'm rooting for you, Saquon. Not that you're going to hear this at all, but, whatever. Justin Jefferson got shut down last, obviously Monday night. He had 12 targets, though. 2 of those were interceptions, unfortunately. But he had 6 catches at 48 yards. Darius Slay was playing out of his mind like he was back in Detroit. He hasn't had a lot of really good games in Philadelphia, but this was one of them. Definitely one of them. Yeah, Justin Jefferson should have definitely had a bigger game, and I think Justin Jefferson is the reason that, well, technically Darius Slay is the reason that Whisker Biscuits came out with a win, because I didn't think there's no way that Justin Jefferson only got 10.8 points. It's absolutely crazy. Well, this inflated score is partially due to Jalen Waddle. 41.1 points. He had 19 targets. Holy crap, that's a lot. I thought he had 14 targets with Tyreek Hill was a lot. Just kidding. 19 targets with Jalen Waddle. 11 catches, 171 yards, 2 touchdowns, and one that was he should have got a touchdown, long touchdown. I think there's supposed to be more points that are missing here. Maybe they're just not being displayed. Who knows? Yeah, Jalen Waddle had a big touchdown. I thought it was a 40-plus yard, so that's why I'm weird. I'm not seeing it on this stat sheet. Whatever. Either way, I haven't seen 19 targets since last year, when Najee Harris had 19 targets and had 14 catches in like week 2 or week 3. Absolutely insane. 41.1 points. That's a big one. T.J. Hawkinson had a little bit of a down game. Had 3 catches for 26 yards. He got 5.6 points. In a game in which they were they only had 17 runs, design run plays with Williams and Swift. I would have thought, even though he had 7 targets, T.J. Hawkinson would have been got more than 5.6 points. Knox had 4 catches for 41 yards, and most of that was early, like first quarter. Like, he got that quick and then didn't do a thing the rest of the game. Then he had 1 more target the rest of the game, and then obviously the game script just flipped. And outside of Diggs and Allen, those was pretty much the point getters. All right, his final one in play. I'm not going to try it. St. Brown. Yep. Oh, Amon-Ra. I thought that was his brother for whatever reason. I did that last week too. Amon-Ra, St. Brown. Whew. He set a record this game here with like most consecutive games of at least 8 catches. He had 2 carries for 68 yards. He had a 40-plus yard rush. I saw that highlight of that one. It was a good run. He just kind of got a jet sweep, ran on the sideline, didn't get touched, so he pushed out of bounds. 9 catches on 12 targets, 116 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 40-plus yard reception. Big game there. One of the reasons that Detroit ended up winning that game. At least the best fantasy producer for Detroit, for sure, in that game. Way to go, Lions. All right, here we go to the bench. Baker Mayfield, 15.3 points. Threw 50% of his pass. It was completed a little under 50%, which is terrible, but also almost typical. 145 yards, a touchdown. Had 6 carries for 35 yards. That's atypical. I'm glad Mayfield's actually starting to move around and actually run with the ball. But he definitely needs to be more accurate, make better decisions. Get DJ Moore the ball. Be a little better with throwing it to McCaffrey out of the backfield. We'll see what McCaffrey did, I think, the next matchup. So we'll see if he was able to actually get it to him or not. But yeah. Dameon Pierce, 8.7, 15 carries. So that's good to see that he was actually utilized. I don't think Rex Burkhead got any carries. I think he had like 3 or 4 targets, which is a complete flip the script from week 1, where Burkhead got like all of it and Pierce got none of it. It's crazy. Yeah, I think this will I'm not going to say it's going to even out, but Dameon Pierce is going to get more usage and better usage than the 8.7 he got this week, especially once he gets touchdowns. Jerome Ford, yeah, nothing, absolutely nothing. It's just don't think he should be on a roster right now. Did he do anything last week? Nothing last week. He just is a kick returner, special teams guy. You know, this guy, Jerome Ford, would be good if we were counting kick return yards. Him and Duvernay, anyone that returns kicks would be good, because you get like the same 0.1 for every yard. So crazy. Breece Hall, 13 points. He finally broke that 10-point barrier. He got a touchdown. Hooray for him. He had one on his only reception, got it for 10 yards. Looked like Michael Carter was utilized more, only because they both had 7 carries, but he had for 50 yards. Carter had, I think, 3 or 4 catches, so utilized a little bit more. There was a big discrepancy in difference between Carter over Hall week 1. It's a little bit less week 2. I think you'll take a couple more weeks and you'll see Carter take a backseat to Hall, but yeah. All right, so Curtis Samuel, 22.9 points. Good for him. 1 carry, 21 yards, 7 catches on 9 targets for 70 yards and a touchdown. Curtis Samuel seems to be the top wide receiver as fantasy-wise for Washington, and that's nuts because they have Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, 2 better receivers, and yet Curtis Samuel's the one getting the points. So maybe not so much a better receiver. But doing well. 22.9 points. I think. What does he have? What did he have last week? Why am I not doing that? He had 19.2 points last week on 11 targets and 8 catches. So Curtis Samuel, if this keeps up, will be a very big pickup. I don't know if he was on the roster. I think that was a pickup. I don't know. I didn't look. Either way, Gabe Davis was out this game, so he didn't play. E.J. Moore had 5 targets or 41 yards. Big letdown from the 11 targets or so that he got week 1. But again, Joe Flacco threw 59 in week 1, and he threw 45 week 2. So things are coming down. Something's got to give. Garrett Wilson was the one with the big game there. I think Corey Davis got some targets, or maybe he didn't. I don't remember. But either way, Moore only had 5 targets. He had 1 carry, which took 6 yards off of his total. So could have a little bit more, but it's what it is. Josh Palmer, 8 targets, which is good to see. 4 catches, though, 30 yards and a touchdown, so he had 13 points. In a game that could have had more, that Keenan Allen was obviously gone. But this coming up on this week, I think he'll end up taking another backseat, maybe looking at 4 or 5 targets as the best case scenario. But Jahan Dotson, here we go, 18.9 points. He had a touchdown on his 4 catches, 59 yards. He has a 140-plus yard reception. Dotson's going to be kind of that speedy, over-the-top wide receiver. Really good talent. Really, really showing that he deserves to be in the first-round consideration. There's some people in the draft that really were ragging on the Washington for picking Dotson, and feels like it was a reach, but he's doing well. Here we go to Garrett Wilson. I just mentioned you. Didn't see you were this far down. 14 targets, 8 catches, 102 yards, 2 touchdowns. So he definitely, and he got the last touchdown right at the end, which put them over the top. They were technically tied before their kicker got the lead there in the end. But very, very efficient. Garrett Wilson was tough. Is tough to cover. Very smooth his routes. Going to be a great young wide receiver. And then Bellinger. Oh my! He had 1 catch for a touchdown, 16 yards, and that's his 8.6 points. All right. So there it is. Whisker Biscuits over center field. This was a huge matchup. I was pumped to see it. So there we go. Good job, both of y'all. All right. Next we have another very, very close matchup. Although it's not on the upper end, it's on the lower end as far as scores. Motley Fool and Demogreg, 95 for Motley Fool and 98 for Demogreg. Looking at Motley, Joe Burrow had 18.5 points. 24 of 36, 199 yards, just under 200 yards. So a touchdown, 2-point conversions, and ran for 26 yards. Definitely got sacked a lot. It really feels like the Bengals, one of their weakest spots that they needed to improve if they want to even sniff the playoffs, was their offensive lines. They spent a whole bunch of money and tried to upgrade it and didn't. It feels like they didn't upgrade their offensive line. Still had a ton of sacks, and Joe Burrow was running for his life the whole game. Very, very sad to see, but he'll have a bounce-back game, I'm sure. We'll see what I'm not sure who he plays next, but yeah. Miles Sanders, a little bit more effective than I thought he was. He was able to break off some pretty good runs, solid runs. 17 carries, 80 yards, 3 catches for 6 yards. So obviously the catches there. That's usually more Gainwell's forte, but Sanders had a respectable 80 yards on the ground. 11.6 points. Cam Akers, very, very shocked with that week 1 usage. Only had 3 carries for nothing, and that was it. Maybe that was the game plan with Sean McVay to just kind of ease him back from the injury a little bit more. Obviously, they did not do that when they came back from the injury late last year. It showed. He was not very efficient, and unfortunately, it looks like he still isn't very efficient with the 15 carries. He only got 44 yards. The Rams didn't run the ball very well at all. Henderson had almost the same amount of yards, I believe, on 5 less carries, but he was able to get a touchdown. So he also had two catches for 18 yards. Rashad Bateman, one of the lone bright spot on his team. 26.8 points. He only had 4 catches for 108 yards, but he had a big 50-plus yard touchdown. So that's what buoyed that score. That was like, he got like 14.6 points or something off the one score. It was his first catch. But, yep. Rashad Bateman. He's 7 targets, so definitely one of the better, more dependable options as far as opportunities in Baltimore after Mark Andrews, of course. Treylon Burks, 4 catches, 47 yards, was up there, I think, at the top of the Titans receiving board. But it was just a really bad game to the Titans overall. Pat Freiermuth, another good, solid game, 12.2 points. He had 4 catches for 22 yards and a touchdown. 7 targets. You like to see the targets as far as tight ends go. That's a good usage there. We'll see if they ever make that quarterback change. If things are different with Kenny Pickett versus Trubisky. Nico Collins, 9.8 points. He had 4 catches, 58 yards. He had 9 targets, so that's a good sign. I like to see the target share being high. It's essentially Nico Collins and Brandon Cooks there in Houston. So the fact that he had 9 targets doesn't really surprise me. 6'5", you'd think maybe a little bit more of might get some more red zone looks, which might be some of the incompletions there. I don't know. I definitely didn't see the game. Just guessing here. DJ Chark, what a letdown. 4 targets and nothing. Didn't catch a thing. Big goose egg. That was pretty much the difference between these teams. If Motley Fool had played almost any other, let's see, what other wide receivers does he have? No, I guess that's not the case. But he could have played almost any other wide receiver, and it could have amounted to a win. Unless, I mean, if he played, say he played Christian Watson, he would have won. 3.9 points. It would have been a very close game, but he would have won. Anyway, moving on to his bench, Jared Goff had a big game. 256 yards, 4 touchdowns, through 34 passes. But yeah, 35.04 points. That's a really good game. Definitely a lot better than Joe Burrow's 18.5. But that pales in comparison to Tua Tagovailoa's game where he threw 50. Oh, my word. Threw 50 passes, threw 469 yards, 6 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 2 really big scores, 1 to Tyreek Hill and 1 to Jalen Waddle. He also had 1 carry for 1 yard. Can't count that carry out. What was it? 18% of Tua's total touchdown passes came in this game. 18%. He's been in the league 3 years. So, if anyone cares, 6 touchdowns. That's huge. This is his biggest game by far. Alrighty. Moving on from the 60.86 points. Holy mackerel. Sorry. I'm just going to dwell on that for a second. To Mills, quarterback, Houston, 19 of 38 for 177 yards, no touchdowns. Obviously, they got 3 field goals. I don't think he's the answer. He was competent last year, but I think he's definitely one of the back, I would say 25 to 32 quarterbacks. And, I mean, he's only a second-year pro. He was definitely not heralded coming into the draft. A lot of people and teams were shocked that the Texans are sticking with him. But, we'll see where we go from there. Obviously, he's got a couple people he can throw to, but that doesn't necessarily mean that much. Zach Moss, 3 carries for 17 yards and did not catch his only target. So that goes. So obviously they just didn't run the ball with Moss or Singletary much, and then finally when the game went to garbage time, they just gave it to Cook 11 times. So I'm guessing that I'm going to just guess that's what happened. I was able to watch the first, I think, quarter, and then NFL Plus locked me out, and I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!" Absolute garbage. Anyway. Isaiah Pacheco, 2 carries for 6 yards, kind of a non-factor right now. I'm sure he may look up in the future, but Williams is currently getting more run than Pacheco, so if anything happens to Williams or if he just starts to outplay him in practice, maybe he'll jump him, but we'll see. Jalen Warren, Pittsburgh, 4 carries, 15 yards, and 1 catch for nothing. 2.5 points, so definitely a non-factor. The running game in Pittsburgh is absolutely atrocious right now, so hopefully that will change. Mason didn't get anything. I think he was a healthy scratch. If not, he may have run later, but they also just signed Marlon Mack. I know I mentioned that when I was talking about Wilson, but we'll see where he falls. But being a rookie, I know that's the sole purpose, the sole reason why Motley picked him up. David Bell, 1 catch for 6 yards. Definitely was supposed to be this shifty guy that was very, very athletic. Knows what he's doing with the ball. I know he didn't test very well as far as numbers, but when you put the ball in his hand, he's a playmaker, and he's not been able to do that or at least get open and get targets. So I'd like to see David Bell get more run, but 1.6 points is not going to be anything you'd be putting in the starting roster. Christian Watson, 3 catches for 9 yards. Nuts. But either way, he got less targets and less catches than Romeo Doubs. So I think that early second round status is not really getting him as far as Dobbs' actual what he's put on the field in practice and training camp, and he's earning a little bit more respect from Aaron Rodgers. I know also last week Watson had that insane drop where it was an easy over-the-shoulder catch for a huge touchdown, and he dropped it. And I don't know if he got any other passes outside of maybe 1 or 2 the rest of the game after that. So we'll see if he's able to make things happen between him and Rodgers. But my money's on Dobbs being better than Watson. Gesicki got a touchdown back of the end zone. Tua threw it up, beautiful. He threw it above the rim that only Gesicki was going to be able to come down with it. He was able to. It was great. And that's the reason why he got 14.1 points. But most of the time, he's definitely not going to be a tight end that gets a lot of targets. Clearly, that's Waddle, Tua, and maybe Chase Edmonds or Mostert getting those targets. One of the biggest shocks so far is Cole Kmet has 0 catches on the year. He only had 1 target last game against Green Bay. I'd like to see that turn around, but that is one thing that blows my mind. I don't know if I was able to draft him in any of my leagues, Cole Kmet, that I'm in. But at this point, I'm kind of relieved because I probably would have played him. If I got Cole Kmet in, the 9th or 10th round in any of these drafts, he'd probably be my starting tight end. Because if I get Cole Kmet, I'm punting tight end at that point. Let's see. Go moving over. So that was Motley with 95. Here's Dem McGregor who got 98 and that close win. Kirk Cousins, very, very just over 50% of his passes he completed, 27 of 46, 221 yards, a touchdown, 3 picks, 2 carries for 20 yards. Cousins had a very, very disappointing game. The Philly defense really confused him. He did not play very well. Those DBs did a very excellent job staying on their man and eliminating a lot of those easy passes. Here we go. Here's what I was waiting for. Christian McCaffrey, 17.8 points. He had 15 carries for 102 yards. He had 1 that was above 40 yards. He only had 5 targets. I was really hoping that'd be a higher number. 4 catches for 26 yards. So McCaffrey, he's a special guy. Wow, that sounds really weird now that I say that. But no, he's a very special player. That's better. He's gonna put up good points. But just like Saquon Barkley, he needs those big plays to really get those and or touchdowns. He looks like he had the big play, which kind of buoyed his points, I think, a little bit there. But Baker Mayfield needs to target his running backs a little bit more. 5 targets. He should get a little more than that. I know it's 20. Well, technically 19 touches because he had dropped 1, but 19 touches. McCaffrey is probably pretty solid as far as what you expect a week. So maybe not, but I think he needs to get more usage in the passing game. Josh Jacobs, 19 carries for 69 yards, 1 catch for 12 yards. He had 9.1 points. Josh Jacobs is, he's in a really precarious position. They didn't renew I don't know if I remember this correctly. Never mind, I'm not going to mention it. Josh Jacobs is someone who outlasted Kenyon Drake, which is good for him. But they have, Zamir White now. So they has another running back breathing down his neck. But getting 20 touches is great. And he as long as he keeps getting those touches, that opportunity is there. He should be good. I know that they lost that game, but there are worse things in the world. Mike Evans, before he was tossed, had 3 catches for 61 yards and then missed a lot of the game, and also is now going to miss the next game, week 3. So that's sad for Mike Evans. He was standing up for Tom Brady, who was being a little crybaby, whining, and Lattimore jawed to him, and he went to jaw, and then next thing you know, Lenny came over, and then Mike Evans came barreling down the corner, busted around, and just shoved over Lattimore. Oh, it just kind of broke out from there. Cooper Kupp, 31.8 points as expected. 14 targets, 11 catches, 108 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he lost a fumble. So it could have been a little bigger for him just by 2 points, but he's about as dependable as they come. He's a solid guy from last year. Now moving over to this year is absolutely insane. Taysom Hill as your tight end, that's a bit of a head scratcher. I know he had a great game week 1, but it was very minimal usage, and he got a touchdown. So that was inflated. His 14 or 15 points that he had was mostly because of the touchdown and a couple catches. So 3 carries for 14 yards. So, yeah, we'll see. If Jameis – actually, you know what I actually was kind of curious about, and we'll see if this ends up happening, but Taysom Hill is a quarterback. Whatever, wants to be a quarterback, kind of like the Tim Tebow of quarterbacks. But Jameis Winston is playing with 4 fractures in his back. If he has to sit, Taysom Hill could be the next man up as far as quarterback goes. So being able to shove him as a tight end, that would be, as long as he does well and gets points for the quarterback position, he could really score points in that tight end thing, kind of a cheat code. Hines had one carry for nothing, 4 catches for 37 yards. Again, just a really bad day for Indianapolis, but this is kind of a normal line you'd see for Hines. I can't really expect much more unless he vultures a touchdown from Jonathan Taylor. 7.7 points is what he got. I would expect anywhere between that and 10 points on a weekly basis for Hines. Brandon Cooks, 10 targets, only 4 catches. That's a real down. I wonder if that's on Mills or if that's on Cooks. But 54 yards. This guy's about as dependable as they get. You get 1,000 yards every year. So doesn't matter who's throwing the ball. He got 9.4 points, so all good. All right, let's check out his bench. 12.4 with Tom Brady. Decent game. Just kidding. It was bad. 190 yards. He threw less than 200 yards. Only had 1 touchdown pass. I don't know. It's just a bad day for Brady. That New Orleans defense, even though they won, definitely gets the best of him. And speaking of New Orleans, Jameis Winston had a rough game, throwing 3 picks, but he was able to get 25 of 40 for 236 yards. So he threw more than Tom Brady was able to. He had 1 touchdown. Honestly, I mean, he's used to throwing passes to Bucs players, so kind of like old times. But all right, Rex Burkhead, 2 catches for 9 yards, like I mentioned earlier with Dameon Pierce. Burkhead did amazing week 1 and then absolutely nothing week 2. So I wonder how it's going to shake out. There's only 2 weeks. You really can't draw those. Can't say this is exactly how it's going to move from here on out, but yeah. Deontay Foreman, 2 carries for 9 yards. He's not going to be a factor unless CMC gets hurt. Tony Pollard, 9 carries, 43 yards, and a touchdown, 4 catches on 7 targets, 55 yards, and a 40-plus yard reception. 20.8 points. That's a lot to leave on the bench. But Tony Pollard definitely outplayed Zeke this week, and they're pretty much hand in hand as far as usage goes. So Tony Pollard is a fairly decent play each week. Let's see here. Gainwell had 2 targets for 11 yards, caught 1 for 11 yards, 2 carries for 7 yards. Definitely not used that much. Sanders got a lot more, and then they were just throwing the ball with Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts was either running with it or throwing it. It was his game. Adam Thielen, 4 catches, 7 targets, 52 yards. All of those catches came in like the last couple of drives in the fourth quarter. He had nothing. He was about to put up a goose egg, and then he ended up getting 9.2 points, and it was all the end there. Let's see, Paris Campbell. He was supposed to be the guy. Pittman was out. Who else was out? Who's their other guy? But yeah, Matt Ryan had no one to throw to. Paris Campbell was going to be the next guy up. He had 2 targets and no catches. That's unfortunate. Jacoby Myers, wow, 13 targets. Holy mackerel. And just to think, I thought Parker was going to eat into that. Guess not. 9 catches for 95 yards and 18.5 points. Great game for Jacoby Myers. You're not going to get that every time, especially with the Mac attack, Mac Jones as quarterback. But that's solid usage right there. Hunter Renfrow, 10 targets, 7 catches, 59 yards, and lost a fumble, so he had 10.9 points. Questionable. I wonder what happened there. He's in the concussion. Okay, he got a concussion, so he may or may not be in. Which means if he does miss, it's going to be the Devontae Adams and Darren Waller and just Josh Jacobs show. All right, so that's Demogreg. That's the matchup between Motley Fool and Demogreg. Demogreg on top again, 98-95. Final matchup. Oh, my word, I'm almost 2 hours into this. I don't think anyone else is listening at this point. Alrighty. This is just for me. Okay, so we have Delmeezy and Bumpo. Delmeezy had a very disappointing week, but I will talk about that disappointing week as there's one lone bright spot, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Probably 10, seeing as how I'm getting things going. He had 77 points to Bumpo's 157. Big week for Bumpo for sure. Delmeezy, see Aaron Rodgers, 19 for 25, 234 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 carries for 10 yards, and 1 fumble lost. The fumble, I believe, was the bad handoff. That was when it was a very odd carry. It was like a counter play, but he tried, instead of being on the other side, he tried like running past them and handing the ball, and they couldn't get the couldn't get the handoff there. That was the fumble. So 21.36 points, decent game, but again, he pretty much just handed the ball off most of the time. I know he had 25 passes, but for the most part, he just handed the ball off. Dalvin Cook, big letdown. That Minnesota game, everybody suffered. Minnesota, Philadelphia. So he had 6 carries, 17 yards, 4 of 6 catches for 19 yards. You'd like to see the yardage up there a lot better because, getting 36, holy crap. For Dalvin Cook, I would not have guessed that. I would have said, okay, maybe that's his receiving yardage. No, that's total scrimmage yards. That's insane. Chase Edmonds definitely got outplayed by Mostert this week. I don't know if that's going to be the first, that's going to be a thing to come. Again, it's been 2 weeks. But he had 5 carries, 33 yards, 1 catch for 8 yards for 5.1 points. That's a bit sad, but again, Miami has a lot of running backs that can do good things. Salvin Ahmed had a year or so ago, he had a 4-game stretch in which he was getting 15 to 20 or so points each week. They just let him run. All right, moving on. Jerry Jeudy had a shoulder injury, so he definitely didn't play much. He had 1 carry for a yard, but then he had 1 catch for the 11 yards. That catch was the one he got hurt on, so he had 2.2 points. Big letdown for a lot of folks who played Jerry Jeudy. Definitely could have had a bigger game. Might have been a factor in the passing attack not working for Denver, but no way to know. James for the Giants had 5 catches, 51 yards, 10.1 points. I don't even know, what is his name? Richie. I don't even know that. I didn't even know his name. What is he? He's a rookie? What is it? No, he's not. Okay. Alrighty. Okie doke. 10.1 points. I'm going to say that again, but I'm going to say to the next player. Travis Kelce, 5 catches, 51 yards. Also, 10.1 points. So, he did had definitely had a lower bad game. He had as many targets as Valdez-Scantling did, which surprises me greatly, but, that happens. Marquise Brown, 12.8 points. He had 6 catches on 11 targets for 68 yards. Marquise Brown, you expect that target share to stay high until D-Hop is back. If he's only getting 12.8 yards, 12.8 points when he has most of the target share coming his way, when D-Hop is back, I don't know if that's going to increase. I think it's going to decrease. Is 12.8 expected points. Russell Gage kind of dropped the ball with Godwin out, and then Evans out for a lot of the game. He only had 6 targets, 5 catches, and 28 yards. I would have thought Gage had more points than that. That's kind of upsetting. He had everything break his way to where all he had to do was get open, catch the ball, and make a play. And that defense just kind of smothered Tom Brady and didn't let him do what he wanted to do. Moving to his bench, Matt Ryan, an abysmal 1.8 points. Oh, my word. As a quarterback who started the entire game through 30 passes, and he only had a 1.8 points. Well, the reason why, I'll tell you why. He had 195 yards passing, but he had 3 picks. So it's very uncharacteristic to Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is usually very accurate, and he threw 50% of his passes in this game. Jacksonville had their number from the get-go. So I don't know what to say. Mike Davis, 5 carries, 4 yard, non-factor, 0.4 points. Madison, 5 targets, 3 catches for 6 yards. Again, Minnesota, nobody got anything going, but he still was able to get 4.4 points. I think at that point, a lot of them, they were just trying to keep Cook. A lot of them was on the last drive, trying to just keep Cook from getting injured. Kenny Golladay had no targets. I think he was out there for like 2 routes. There was nothing. Kenny Golladay, one of the biggest busts. I think even bigger bust than, oh my word, what's his name? The tackle from the Redskins, that huge free agent. It's going to kill me. I'm going to have to look it up later. But, big money receiver and has done nothing. Still hasn't caught a touchdown in a year plus. Laviska Shenault is out. I think a healthy scratch. Wan'Dale Robinson, is he injured? Injured. Wan'Dale Robinson was injured, so yeah. Shakir for Buffalo had 2 targets, nothing. Pierce was out. That's who the other one was for the Colts. So Pierce and Pittman were out. Hunter Henry, 1 target. Nothing. That's upsetting. But it's also New England. So, alrighty. And that's Delmezy's 77 points. Moving over to Bumpo. Had his best week thus far. Might even be his best week that he's had in this league, from dating back to last year, too. This is a huge week. I'm not trying to slight him at all, but this is a big week. 34.78 points with Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz threw for 337 yards, 3 touchdowns. Only had a pick. He had 1 pick, but he was definitely moving the ball. I know they lost, but game script they passed a lot more. So we'll see what happens. I kind of hope that they get a little bit more balance when Brian Robinson gets back, and that they kind of give him the ball and kind of shove Antonio Gibson to being a kick returner, and that's about it. But we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening with Washington. Nick Chubb had an amazing game. Only had 87 yards, but had 3 touchdowns, 3 catches, 26 yards on 17 carries, 32.3 points. Big producer there. Cordell Patterson, 4.1 points, 10 carries, 41 yards, and did not catch his only target. It's kind of sad, but you got to wonder how long Patterson's going to be effective and if he's going to stay. I think that's going to eventually go to Algier as far as the running back getting touches. Sorry, I forgot the word for touches. Christian Kirk, 25.8 points. Caught all of his targets, 6 of them, 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. Great game. Great job. Again, Jacksonville they were all over Indy. Indy could not do whatever they wanted. Michael Thomas, 18.5 points. He had 6 of 9 in the catch department, 65 yards and a touchdown. I'm not going to say Michael Thomas is back, but it's really good to see him catching and also getting the score. Mark Andrews, 11 targets, 9 catches, 104 yards and a touchdown, even had a carry for 3 yards. 25.7 points, so really, really good. He was the top tight end of the week, so that's good. Good for him. James Robinson, 23 carries, which is, that's a lot. 25 touches for Robinson. Etienne had like 11 touches. That's nuts. But he had 23 carries, 64 yards, and a touchdown, 2 catches for 14 yards. I definitely was hugely surprised. Jacksonville beat New England. Beat Indy that bad. Darnell Mooney, 1 catch for -4 yards. That's absolutely insane. Between the top 2 projected players for pass catchers for Chicago, they have a combined, and this is Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet, through 2 weeks, they have 2 catches for 4 yards. Utter disappointment. I'm flabbergasted. Yup. All right. Tannehill got chased by Buffalo's defense. He had 2 picks through 117 yards before he was pulled in the third quarter. He had 0.88 points. So these probably the 2 worst quarterbacks this week were in this matchup. Both on the bench, thankfully. 0.88 points for Tannehill and 1.8 for Matt Ryan. So, woo. Big scorers there. Rashad Penny, 6 carries, 15 yards, 1.5 points. That's kind of sad, but they also got down by San Fran, and they couldn't do anything. Couldn't move the ball, couldn't do anything. Damian Harris, 16.7 points. He, again, was able to find the end zone at 15 carries, 71 yards, 2 catches, and 16 yards through the air. He's one of those boom bust guys, just like James Conner. And he got that touchdown, so he was definitely above that the double digit points. But 16.7, so good job, Damian Harris. Myles Gaskin, he's one of the ones. He was out. Is he even on a team? Yeah, he's just a healthy scratch. Yeah, Gaskin, Salvin Ahmed, Edmonds, Mostert. I mean, any one of them, if they're the lead back, will produce. They have. So, DeAndre Carter, 3 catches, 55 yards, 8.5 points. Let's see, Tyler Boyd had 2 catches, 17 yards, and a 2-point conversion, which gave him 5.7. It's just Higgins was active, so Boyd didn't get the run. I thought Boyd's usually one that has a nose for the end zone. He'll just get the scores. He'll vulture a touchdown from Chase or Higgins. Yeah. Pettis didn't even get a target. Schwartz didn't even get a target. Moving down to Njoku, 6.2 points. He had 3 catches for 32 yards. He got utilized early. I think 2 of his catches were on the first drive. He got used early and then just kind of disappeared. Hayden Hurst, 5 catches, 24 yards, 7.4 points. Yeah, I don't have anything more to say about that. So again, final score, Bumpo, 157 over Delmezi, 77 points. All right, this is super long, so I'm just kind of end it here. Hope y'all had a good week. This one was exciting because 2 matchups were very close, and a bunch of them came down to and a lot of these came down to the final. Those 2 matchups came down to the final Monday night game in order to decide the winner. Look forward to week 3. Let me look forward real fast. This week we have this one's going to be interesting. I think big game of the week is going to be between Big Papa Swag and Blue Mitten. 2 undefeateds. The rest of the it's going to be. It looks like as far as projections go, there might be 1 or 2 close games, but this one here I think is going to be one of the tighter ones. Should be fun. Good luck everybody into week 3. Thanks for listening this far. If you're still here, you probably closed it out by now, but that's cool. It's already after midnight, so I'm just going to go to bed. Thanks. Waivers will be claimed in 2 hours, so hopefully y'all have those in. Next week I'll talk more about the waivers and stuff. I just ran out of time. I just want to talk too much. All right. Love y'all. Have a good week.